Per, the Price Whisperer. Thank you so much for coming on the Inner Edison Podcast.
Well, Ed, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to this, and I hope the audience will find some nuggets of interest in what we're going to talk about.
I'm sure we can get there. Everybody has a story. It's a matter of finding that story that they want to tell. And I found from doing this, I tell people I want them to talk about failures and stuff, and still people don't want to talk about it. And it's until you do, people really don't think you connect with them.
Yep.
I had a friend of mine who just recently on Facebook, it was the anniversary of him getting fired, and he talks on stages all this last year, and it was the best thing that happened to him. But he talked about how that happened, and he had so many people reach out. People want to know that you're a normal person with it, that you have the same issues that other people have.
That's for sure. If you want to be successful in business and in sales and whatever, you have to show vulnerability, right?
Correct.
That makes you human. It's easier to do business with a human.
Correct. That is correct. Yeah. All right. So you're in, from what we just found out before the show, you're in Los Angeles. That's what you said, correct? How long have you been in LA?
I came here in 1994.
Wow.
Yeah, a long time. Almost 30 years.
What brought you to LA?
I was recruited to set up the a new division and run that division for a fairly large public company, and which I did with some success. That's the good news. The bad news is that the company around me died, right?
So. I could see that. All right. And we said LA. As I know, I lived in San Diego, which was North County, on the coast there for 20 to 25, probably 22 years. So when people say I live in Los Angeles, you don't always live in Los Angeles. You might live in Los Angeles County.
Yes.
Correct?
Okay. Yes. I mean, it's particularly it's called Woodland Hills.
I know where Woodland Hills is, right next to Thousand Oaks.
That's right. Yeah.
I actually worked for, is it Blue Cross or Blue Shield that was there?
Okay.
For a long time.
Yeah, that building is all empty. The whole building is empty now. And I know they're trying to either sell it or maybe even convert the whole thing into apartments.
Yeah, when I worked there, I learned how to actually listen to what people were saying on the phone. The tones and inflections of their voices. I did that for about 8 months on the small business side, and then I wrote a paper on why they should get, this is how old this is, why they should get on the internet. The website, the whole 9 yards. And because of my paper I wrote for them before I left, they actually did it. So,
all right, good for you.
But it's like people don't realize how connected we really are. There's people talk about, I don't know, Kevin Bacon, but the 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. But really in life, we're probably 2 to maybe 3 separations from knowing somebody the way we're all connected these days.
Yes. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, that's for sure.
All right. So I know your name is the Price Whisperer. Have you always been known as the Price Whisperer?
No,
How did that come about? I guess I should say.
Well, it came about because I was in a networking group here in LA, and we met every Saturday for almost like a little mini TED conference, and it was 150 people every time, and I presented to the group a few times, and I got known as the pricing guy until a gentleman who called himself the pitch whisperer told me that I'm the price whisperer. And since I got this wacky name that is difficult to pronounce and difficult to spell, unless you're Scandinavian like me, I sort of adopted the moniker, and if nothing else, I hope it's easier to remember than Sjofors.
So I like Sjofors.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but that's me. I'm an old vet.
Yeah.
All right. So you worked for the utility company. I'm trying to understand your background, how you.
No, it's not. It wasn't utility at all. I have an engineering background.
Okay.
And where I got obviously an MBA as well, but I started to work as an MBA as an engineer, and in electronics, and and did so for several years. And I was in this particular company, where the CEO, small company, the CEO wanted me to go into sales, and I said, no, I'm not going to go into sales. I'm going to I'm an engineer. I can't go into sales. Anyway, eventually he convinced me that I should do that. So together we started a company in Zurich, in Switzerland, and he stood for the money, I stood for the work, and what we did was that we represented, we're like a rep organization, so we represented a couple of mostly American manufacturers of broadcast electronics over the European market. And I drove that up to I think 6 million or thereabouts, and it was such a struggle, so here I am, I'm Swedish. I just decided to set up a company in Switzerland. So I'm doing this for the first time, starting a company. I am the CEO for the first time, and to make things easier, I have to sell internationally in all countries in Europe, and in a language that I didn't know. And I was scared shitless, but I was also so excited, because it was something new. It was something that I mean, and it was a real struggle at times, but it was also very rewarding, right?
Right.
And eventually I was bought over by what really was our main competitor, which was a Japanese company, and I was CEO over their European subsidiary. So it's kind of the same thing in terms of selling over Europe and so forth, and of course together with shuttling back and forth to Japan to the headquarters. And then I came here to the US.
Okay, so that was in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, that was the Japanese company out of London. Was it? That was in the early 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, because I just remember, I'm older and remember all that technology stuff being differently, getting into new markets. And now it's like there's what new market, right? That's compared to where it was back then. But it seems like when you became in sales, you were uncomfortable. And so you were doing things that made you uncomfortable. And you were still doing it. Because I always tell people, try, do things that you're not comfortable with, because that's how you grow and how you become better at things.
Yeah. It was just sort of suck it up and do it, and learn as you go. I mean, for example, I had I didn't have a distributor in Spain, right? So what do? I mean, this was before internet, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I jumped on a plane to Madrid, booked myself into a hotel, went into the main telephone station, right? Looked at the yellow pages and started to call people, right? After 5 days, I had a distributor in Spain.
There you go.
You just suck it up and do it. And it doesn't matter how uncomfortable it is, and how should I say, how scared you are. You have to do it, what you have to do.
Right. Yeah. It's unfortunately how the kids of today couldn't do that.
I don't know. I don't have any kids.
No, I'm just saying the current generation of people aren't used to what we used to call pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just go. That's, and figure it out. You'll figure it out. Just do it. Where most people can't do that these days. And we're missing. I mean, that's just why I'm saying. I've been here. My grandparents came here a long, long time ago. Then my parents are here, and I've been here. I've seen it with us Americans who, raised our kids. We wanted them to have a better life than we did. And then now they're spoiled and they don't understand how to do things. I'm not saying all of them. I'm just saying that's what you run into, where immigrants who come here and do stuff, do really well because they know the opportunity. And I think we've
Yep.
lost that opportunity for the people who live here.
I concur 100%, and I think, but it's also self-selected. I think the many of the immigrants that come here, like myself, do so because they see opportunity. Because the one thing that I really like about this country is the can-do attitude. That I mean, nothing is impossible. You in a very different way than from my experience from other countries.
Yeah. Well, we also don't end our sentences with a negative.
That's right.
Right. People don't understand. It's like a beautiful day, no?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So they're so used to that at the end of everything. Of course, they're going to have, but they come here. You're right. You're limited by what you limit yourself.
Absolutely.
And I think people, they put more limitations on themselves instead of focusing on, yes, you can do it. I wanted my girls to, because one of us guys, we normally get told you can do anything. Women are the ones that never gets told that. I wanted to make sure my girls knew that they could do anything they wanted to. I knew my boys would know that. I mean,
yeah. Well, I remember I had a conversation with the neighbor here. Has a I don't know, niece or whatever it was, a young, maybe 22 years old, attractive woman. And I'm so much into entrepreneurship and stuff like that. And so I was so disappointed. We talked about what she had moved here from Portland or something like that. And I said, so what are you now going to do? Right. And she said, well, I'm going to find me a secure job in a big company. That doesn't exist.
No.
The only security that you ever can have is the security that you create yourself.
Yep.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And what you don't know actually is that I'm involved in an organization that do business plan competition for high school kids. And I'm on the board of that organization and the lead judge and stuff like that. And it's really amazing to see how the enthusiasm of some of these kids that are, 15, 16 years old. And they really see that especially those kids that comes from sort of underdeveloped areas, on how they see entrepreneurship as a way to make a better life.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, a couple of years ago, the guy who won the competition, his whole business plan was to build an indoor skateboard rink, right? And he had identified everything, done a beautiful plan. He had financials that was really on point, marketing plan that was great. And his parents were so poor, he didn't have a computer, right? Mm-hmm. So he was sitting in his local church developing all of this in South Central LA, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it's people, what do you want to do? I mean, what you said about security you don't have security working for somebody else. I mean, look right now, I think it's Hasbro just said we're laying off people, right? In the next year. And it's like, okay, they're a toy company. You just made all these toys and, so now you have no security unless what you do for yourself and what you set up for yourself.
Correct. Yeah. And chart your own course through life and career and so forth.
All right. So I want to get back on kind of the price whisperer part, because I was told that you never want to use price as a selling tool.
That's right.
And so
the thing with I mentioned my first two jobs,
right.
but then I had several other CEO jobs, and once I moved here, and we did experiments with pricing, and some of those experiments were very successful, meaning next quarter revenues are up 25%. Others were complete duds. And what I learned in business school was so academic and theoretical that it was useless information. It didn't help us to understand why some experiments worked and others didn't. So when it was time for me to set out on my own, I developed the process to make that every pricing experiment a success. And that process, in short, is to realize that everything you do in a company affects how you can set prices. How you target customers. If you don't target customers, you are trying to boil the ocean, which is kind of, hard, right?
Yeah.
How you target customers leads to or supports different pricing. How you market support different prices. Your sales channels and methodology can support different prices. How you stratify the pricing can lead to lower sales friction and your ability to price for profit differently. So it's that understanding that everything you do makes a difference, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and that is something that is, I present and do workshops for CEO groups fairly frequently, and this is something that is really hard to understand for these guys, because they've been business school talk about pricing as would it be living in a vacuum, but it doesn't. Nobody says in business school is that if you test 7 different marketing messages, you may find that one of them support higher prices than the other 6, right? But instead it's about, okay, we're not going to change anything. We're just going to do price testing, which is why price testing almost never works, right?
So how do you set the right prices then?
Well, there's a way of doing pricing research, which is it's market research on steroids, to be honest. And from that, you can accurately, if it's done right, you can accurately measure what customers are willing to pay for a product or a service. And from that, you can predict sales volume and revenue at different prices with great accuracy. And here's another mistake that so many companies do, is that they talk to customers. You should talk to customers, but that's not where your growth is going to come from. The growth is going to come from non-customers. It's more important to know why somebody didn't buy than why somebody bought, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And that, because I always ask agents, 'cause I don't know if you know, I own a mortgage company, and
Yeah.
when someone didn't go through me, I asked, why didn't you go through me? And they're like, well, this is, I want to know the reason why, because that's how I get better. That's how I, get more market share. I get more of this by understanding what I didn't do and how I need to change it.
That's right. That's right. This is an attitude towards sales that is unbeknownst to most companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I find that remarkable, right? Because again, you I talk to a lot of people, and I remember in one of these conversations I had a couple of weeks ago, somebody had some kind of gift shop like on the beach here in, like, I don't know, Redondo Beach or wherever it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, how can I do that, right? Well, you have somebody goes into the store, look around, and then on the way out, you stop them and you say, I'll give you $5 if I can get 5 minutes of your time. 1 out of 10 will stop.
Right.
For
the $5. Yeah.
Yeah. And for $50 or $100 over 3 days, whatever, you have your answer. Right.
Right. I mean, because most people would just go, oh, my prices are too high. Let me lower my prices or this or that. And the problem with that is like you see the cartoons or the certain little things where the commercial where the two people are selling the same thing. One's at $20, the other one, oh, I'm going to make mine 15. And then he makes his 15 and she makes her 10 and then he buys her out.
Yeah,
And
right.
then raises the price of everything.
We've actually been through advising companies to do exactly that. There's a particular technology or process you can use called cross price elasticity, and with that you can model how people migrate between the choices they have by price alone. So we can say that if you set this price, you're going to be revenue neutral, but you're going to grab, say, 40% of a named competitor's business, right?
Right.
And it has happened that in cases like that, after 9 months, a year, our client buys this company who is now weakened because they've taken their business from them, and then they jack up the price again.
So you've been in Southern California long enough, but Price Club, Costco, is that what happened to Price Club?
Price Club, I don't know.
Oh, you remember Price Club, right?
No,
you
I
don't remember?
don't.
But in the 90s, they were the two stores. You had Costco and you had Price Club, and they would compete against each other. Because I was in San Diego at the time, and they were down there, and they were trying to build that up. And yeah, they went away. One of them went away, and I was wondering if that's what they did. They just priced it so
Well, it could be. I mean, today we have Walmart and Target, eh?
Yeah.
And Target is actually cheaper than Walmart, and they're really struggling, right? And if you there's no winners in a price war. Think about how the and price wars you have when companies say that their product is a commodity and they start to sell on price alone, right?
Right.
And think about how this have led every American airline to go into Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the last 12 years, except Southwest, right? Because they're in the price war. They don't understand how to differentiate themselves. They have the same pathetic product, to be honest. Uncomfortable seat, lousy service, and it's not a particularly pleasant experience to fly. At least I don't think so. And they compete on price. And in fact, I used to go back and forth between either LAX or Burbank and the Bay Area for many years. And rarely, I mean, I did price shopping like everybody else. And rarely was Southwest the low-cost choice. You could almost always get a cheaper price on Delta or United or something like that. And we're talking about, for a return ticket, maybe $300 instead of $450 for Southwest. Big difference.
Yeah.
And Southwest is supposed to be the low-cost carrier.
Well, it's what people with the perception, not necessarily the truth.
That's right. There's I've been, as I'm sure you have, I've been exposed to, I can't even remember what they call. There's one of these insurance companies that keep on pounding how cheap they are, and you're going to save this much, you're going to save that much, So at one point, I actually asked for a quote, and it was like 25% more expensive than what I paid for my car insurance, right?
Right.
So, and I had a conversation with somebody that said about that particular company that they bring in people by low price, and they keep them by excellent service.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, but like we were talking about price, you never want to compete on price
no,
because
you know what?
only winners are the consumers.
No,
And
not even that. Not even that.
Really? Because
Yeah.
one of the companies go away? Is that why?
Because the companies go away, there is less choice. There is, in my presentations, I have this, because companies then start to cut cost to the point that they can't deliver a quality service anymore. And in my presentations that I'm doing, I have this one slide of a donut shop going out of business, and with a caption saying that in order to keep the cost low, we made the hole in the donut bigger and bigger until the donut disappeared. Right. So, and that's what happens.
Right. What's that phrase that you can? What is it? Cheap, fast, and good. You can have two of them, but you can't have all three.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And
Which
that
ones
is
do you
actually
want?
very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
Because
very
if you want a good, if you want certain, it's like when you were talking about 92 back then, I was in the computer industry,
true.
and
So,
what do you want? You want a quality machine and service, or do you want no service? And you know what I mean? That was the whole thing. You can't have a cheap product and have the service support that you need for those things.
that's right. But like you mentioned Costco, for example, that's another example of Costco's Costco's membership. It's not a membership. It's a loyalty program, right?
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, Amazon Prime is a loyalty program. Yeah, you get something for it, but and that's something to remember, that a loyalty program should always be something that you pay for, right? Because
Right.
otherwise it's meaningless for the buyer.
Yeah, because
You know?
you don't even have to have a card. You just can buy one of their gift cards online, and then you
Mhm.
can go in and use it, and you don't have to pay a membership.
Oh, I didn't even
Yeah,
know
yeah,
that.
yeah. You want that's what people do when they try to figure ways around other stuff. They're like, oh, just get one of those, gift cards for Costco. They'll let you use it in there, and you don't
Mm.
have to pay the membership.
Ah, okay. Well,
But it's
maybe I should have a conversation with my wife.
but the only thing is, if you don't have a membership, you don't get all that money back, right?
Oh, I don't know if I get any money back from Costco.
Yeah, if you get on one of the bigger programs, they give you a percentage of what you spend back
Oh,
each year. You get a check.
all right. Well,
Yeah, but
cool. Yeah.
the
But
problem with
then
that whole place is it's it used to be you can never go in there for less than a couple $100, and they
that's
know it.
right.
Yeah,
Now you can never go in there for less than 200.
yeah. Well, that's why I said a couple hundred.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, and we got out of there one time at $50 and couldn't believe it because they didn't have what we were looking for.
Yeah, this is the problem. They have they're so much of these, whatever you buy is in a container that is so big that half of it is going to be spoiled by the time it's before you run out, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was
Um,
just going to say they have, and a lot of people don't understand what a loss leader is, right?
mhm.
And I try to explain to people, like in my industry, when they do buy a house and they do the pest report's only $75, but the repairs, I always find repairs, and
Yes.
the repairs are ridiculously priced. They're at least double what you could get another person to do it at,
Mm.
and so you have to really, again, they're based off the loss leader volume, where a store will say, okay, my can of peas is this, come on in and get you for very expensively on everything else.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that still are they still doing that type of thing?
Oh, I'm sure they do.
I'm just asking because you're a price person. So,
Yeah, but we don't really work with retail. You
okay.
know, it's and part of it is because, I mean, retail been around for a long time, and the people in retail, they have these slot prices. They want a product at that price, they want a product at that price, and they want a product at that price. So they look at pricing in a slightly different way. And most of our clients are B2B clients. and where if you sell something a little bit more complex B2B, it's impossible actually to know what buyers are buying from. If they buy from competitors, you don't know, right? You may think but you don't. So that's where we get most of our business.
All right. So before we go, last thing, how do you improve your pricing at a company? I mean, what can you do to, make sure that your price is at the right price? I know you talked about doing some type of testing and everything, but what's the easiest way to know?
Well, I can tell you two things here. First off, let me give you an example of a company, a recent client. They sell these. They have these dispensers for purified water that you see in grocery stores or places like that.
Okay.
And they came to us and they said, we tried to increase our prices 7 years ago and it backfired, right? So we had to go back to our old prices. And in the kind of pricing research we do, which is measure what people are willing to pay, we discovered that if they use a different positioning of the company, that would support more profitable prices. And this particular company has some kind of service people that goes to these dispensers every day and make sure they're clean and so forth. But when the CEO heard that they could change their positioning, he was very quick. So in about a week, they had all their messaging and so forth on the machines themselves changed to that new positioning. And so in that 1 week, they went from a $200 million to a $240 million company.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we're talking like the windmill things where you can get your water at. And then
I mean, it's not really windmills. It's these machines, where you put your 5-gallon jug in.
And yeah, I know. Around here, they have it's like a windmill. They have that's just what they have around. They have them in stores that don't have that one, but I'm just saying that a couple of the companies where they have it, it looks like it's going to be a windmill.
Yeah.
So
that's an example. But if what the folks who listen here, if you're in a small company of sorts, if you have a new company, if you're coming up with a new product, whatever, or new service, one price sets an expectation of quality.
Right.
And if the price is too low, we don't buy it because we think it's going to be inferior quality, right? So one way a small company can do this, or a larger company that comes out with a newer product or service, is to go to at least 25 potential customers. These are not current prospects. They are not current customers. They are not, certainly not friends and family, just possible prospects, right? And you do this anonymously, so you don't tell them who you come from. And you ask them two questions. And the first question is, you describe your product or your service. And then you ask the question, now when you know what we offer, what is a price that is so low that you think we are going to overpromise and underdeliver? So for that reason, you won't buy, right? And that you feel that the quality is not going to be what you want. And then you ask them the next question, which is, now let's look at the flip side. Assuming that we are going to underpromise and overdeliver, the product or service is going to be way better than your expectations. What is still a price that is so high you wouldn't be able to buy it, right? And then you take the averages of those two questions for the 25 or more people, and you have the range of where your prices should be, right?
Right.
So very practical. This is something that almost anybody can do, right?
I think so.
And go ahead.
I think people forget, or they're worried more about, again, everybody wants to make sure that it's in a price point that they'll be able to sell it at, still make money off of it. Because I learned this in my industry when it came back in the day when we sold by a rate versus the way we do it now.
Mhm.
We it was, you could give the farm away for free, but the ones you made the most money on were the most happiest.
Absolutely. But could price also select your customers?
Yeah. And so
Uh,
I was like, I've made more money off of people and they love me more than anybody else. And I made nothing off of somebody else and they hated me.
do we have time for another story?
Sure, go for it.
All right. So another company here in LA, they have a phone system in the cloud, business phone system in the cloud. We saw that they, from the research, that they could quadruple their prices.
Wow.
Right. Which they did over about a 9-month period. And when I then followed up with the CEO, he said that two things happened. First off, our sales volume increased with 25%. Secondly, we got a more professional level of customers, and we got rid of the bottom feeders. So our customer support cost is down with 80%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so basically what you're saying is you get better customer. People are willing to pay more for things as long as there's a perceived value to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what I always believed, because how many people go get, Mercedes or certain watches or certain things because of the perceived, the status symbol versus anything else. And some of those are some of the worst vehicles to drive, but some of them, not all of them. I've had them all, but
So a couple of years ago, I read this interview with the CEO of Rolex, right?
Mhm.
And he was asked to make a comment about the status of the Swiss watch industry, to which he answered, "I don't know. We are not in the watch industry. They're in the lifestyle industry."
Well, that's how you change the what you're talking about originally about being where our industry was going for the longest time, and as a commodity business, right? Because that's
Mhm.
all about price, and you
Yeah,
got to get yourself out of that somehow.
yeah,
And yeah,
yeah. And it's really hard to decommoditize yourself, but that is, if you start by doing it a little bit, you get more resource and can put more money into market development and continue that decommoditization process.
right. I mean, because Charles Schwab did that.
Hmm.
Okay, back in the late 80s, early 90s, they went totally commodity, and then now they have some of the most expensive people working for them.
Oh, okay.
So they came the other way. What I mean is they went commodity and then slowly came and took market share away from people, and then they're still here and they've
Mm,
grown since that. But
yeah.
now they do the other side of it.
Yep.
So,
Cool.
Per, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Ed, it was a pleasure. And like I said, I hope the audience found some interesting nuggets here.
I'm sure they did. I mean, they'll learn at least how to price something properly and what they can do to check that. Do you consult on anything, or do you only work with certain people?
No, no,
What
no,
I'm trying to
no.
get at is how do people find you if you want them to
Yeah,
find you?
well, you can find this, for example.
Okay, your book, The Price Whisperer.
Yeah, the price. If you do a Google search for the Price Whisper, you'll find about 10 million hits. That's me. And I have a YouTube channel, and obviously the book, and I publish a lot of stuff.
Okay,
So
I'll have to check it out.
that's the best way of finding me.
Yeah, I have to check it out because I do the same thing. I do a lot of video, a lot of content, but I always like to find other people,
Mhm.
and then I'll get your book. Okay.
Appreciate it very much.
No, I always like it. So
This is one of the things I say that I said earlier, that I do a lot of talks for CEO groups and stuff like that. And I always get the question, "Are you going to give away your book?" And I said, no,
no.
because then there's no perceived value.
Right. And so what I do with guests is I say, okay, I want a signed copy. So if you
Mhm.
send me a signed copy, I will buy your book and give it to somebody else.
All right. I'll
Right.
send you a signed copy.
All right. Thanks. You heard it here, folks. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. I had a good
No.
time talking to you and understanding about price and how you price things. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you so much, Ed.
All right.